I'm Ruth Padilla divorced, and I live in Costa Rica, although I grew up in Argentina and was born in Colombia. So my connection to Scripture Union began even probably before I was fully aware of it, when my father was part of the team that began the pioneering work of Scripture Union in Argentina, where I was growing up. And then when I was 13, he actually had a project, and he said, I think maybe you could do it. And so at age 13, I translated a devotional for children from English into Spanish for Scripture Union. And this was my first paid job in my life. I was 13. And then as a teenager, and while I was in high school, I was involved with Scripture Union as a volunteer and engaged in bringing my friends into activities and a camp we had down on the beach in Argentina. So I was very privileged to be brought up through Scripture Union. What I really appreciated about Scripture Union was that it invited us into the Word in a fresh way, and also to do so in the fellowship of other young people, to explore what our faith really looked like, to ask tough questions together, but to discover together that we had a calling, that God was calling us into God's work in the world, and to do so in an open way, a fun way. I particularly remember times in sharing in this small cottage on the beach, where we would camp around the cottage and have all kinds of activities and deep Bible studies and deep fellowship with our friends. So I think it's really important that we as Christians engage in bridging the gap between people and other people across divides, across the digital divide, the gender divide, wealth inequality divide, the divide that happens between people that are spending, actually impacting climate change the most, and the people that are being affected by it the most. All of these are gaps we need to cross, because actually Christ himself crossed those divides before us and sends us into the world. As he went into the world, he broke many of the stereotypes and prejudices of his day in order to reach people with God's love. And so his intent was, yes, to reconcile humanity with God, with our Creator, but also to reconcile people with other people. And so these social divides, the racial, ethnic, cultural divides, and all the others I mentioned, these are all ones we are called to bridge as a witness of God's love for God's people, for all of God's people. So this is so important for people that are ministering to children, to youth, to families, because people are not just individuals in isolation. People live in social settings, and these gaps, these differences, these social realities are part of their lives. Disregarding them is not really giving credit to the fullness of their lives and all the complicating factors they might be encountering. So we can't engage fully with people, expressing God's love fully to people, without grappling with these realities that are part of their lives. So one of the biggest gaps is prejudice, stereotyping, exclusion that is grounded on racism and ethnic prejudice. And sometimes we aren't even fully aware of how much this biases our perception of other people. And so one very concrete thing is doing a bit of a racial audit of ourselves, of our own hearts. What things might be making me favor this child over that one? might make me more receptive to the realities, the needs, the challenges of this child or this youth versus this other one. Perhaps I'm being branded. My mind, my heart are being branded by racism. And so this personal audit before God of recognizing the image of God in all people, in all children, in all youth, regardless of their color or ethnicity, is one very important first step. I would hope that in addition to bringing scripture into the life of children and youth and engaging them in camps and teaching them about God's love, that these concerns about bridging these gaps would be part and parcel of any planning, strategy, design, curriculum, that there be concrete responses to these realities so that the whole gospel might reach with the good news of God's love in all dimensions of life.